Okay. Episode 6 on Nat Talks About It. Um, there was a bit of a delay on this episode, so we are a week off. Um, Episode 6 is Loyalty-Bitten by My Own Snake. And the topic is loyalty. So there's an interest in knowing how I figure out what topic I'm going to talk about each week or every 2 weeks. Loyalty has come up because I noticed that the more I talk to different kinds of people, the more I notice a discrepancy on the definition of loyalty. And it sounds crazy, right? Because most of our meaningful relationships are founded and based on loyalty. But you'd be surprised if you ask five people that you know, or 10 of your closest people, what is loyalty? Everybody has a different definition. And I think that why that's important is because if you and 5 of the people you love, or the people you care about, or the people you are closest to have different definitions of loyalty, then how are you all loyal to each other, right? And how does that come out? And I happen to believe that creates a lot of conflict between people in relationships. And I'm talking about romantic relationships, friendships, family relationships. I think that the fact that we don't assign actual time and invest in figuring out what loyalty means to us and the people we care about is actually a big source of conflict between us and the people we care about. So I've been very intrigued by how different we are. So I can tell you that me and a good number of the people that I love don't define loyalty the same way, right? So what is loyalty? Obviously, this is Nat Talks About It. So I'm not saying that my definition is the definition, because I think it's very subjective. But for me, loyalty, and it's been this way for a very long time, ever since I found out how important loyalty is. And it's really about the commitment and consistency that comes out in whatever relationship it is. I don't think that you can have loyalty without commitment, and I don't think that you can have loyalty without consistency of what it is that you're doing to nurture that relationship. And a lot of times people think, well, commitment, why does loyalty need commitment, right? You can't define in a polygamous relationship or in an open relationship that they don't have loyalty because they're not committed to only each other. So that's not the type of commitment that I mean. So the type of commitment that I mean is not the I vow to be with you and only you. It can definitely include that. So for me, it does include that in my romantic relationships, but that's not the commitment that I think defines loyalty. The commitment that I think defines loyalty is the commitment that I am committed to do the things that you and I think we should do to make this relationship grow. I think that a lot of times people say, I'm committed to you, you're committed to me. And then there's nothing that is done to nurture that commitment. That's the commitment I'm talking about. And I think it's different for different relationships. But for me, so I can tell you in romantic relationships, I commit to checking in, right? In romantic relationships, I commit that what's important to you is important to me. In my romantic relationships, I commit that I'm going to join in your goals, right? Those are the things that I commit to. Supporting you in whatever it is that you want to make happen for yourself, right? Our goals may not align, but whatever you've defined yours to be, I'm going to join in that. And I'm committed to that. That's the commitment that I'm talking about. And I find it very hard to believe that someone is loyal to me when they don't do those things. So that's how I define loyalty. So because loyalty is a big topic when it comes to romantic relationships, I think those are the easiest examples for us to talk about. But as I'm talking to people and I'm getting older and I'm having different relationship experiences, one of the questions that comes out when I think about loyalty or I talk about loyalty is, why do people define it differently? How couldn't something, right? Like if water is water and we all agree water is water and cars are cars and the weather is the weather, then why is loyalty not defined unanimously, right? And what I think it comes down to is that a lot of us feel loyalty and define loyalty differently, both because of what we've seen, what we've been given, or what we haven't been given in relationships. And as everything, right, that starts when we're very young, right? Whatever we were not given when we were very young, and whatever we did not see, often defines how we see things or how we don't see them. And when you think about it, right, clinically in therapy, most of the issues that we have come from a place of lack, right? We go from being small children to growing up into adults that are always trying to fill voids and always trying to find what we've lacked. So similarly, when we've lacked to see loyalty from the people that were supposed to love us just for loving us and being loyal to us, right? Like our parents, our siblings, our nuclear families, or the people that we were raised with, right? Even if it's not our natural families, but the people that we were raised with. If we didn't see loyalty there, the way we define it kind of moves into adolescence, adulthood, and by then everybody knows it's too late, right? By then it's way too late. So I think and what I think about the most are, and I'm sure that you guys have some of these people in your life, right? There are people that talk about loyalty. Oh, I'm so loyal. I love loyal people. I look for loyalty. And when you talk to them, like, how do you show loyalty? How would someone show loyalty to you? And what do they say a lot of times? Oh, I'll take a bullet for him. That's my brother. I'll take a bullet for him, right? They're quick to take a bullet. The same type of personality often says, you wanna dispose of a body? I'll drive the car. Let's go. I got you. Whatever you need, right? You want to rob a bank? Listen, I don't agree with you, but I got you, right? So it's always these like very drastic situations to define loyalty. And that's a struggle for me. That's a struggle for me because how often are you going to have to take a bullet for me, right? Not very often. I don't typically get myself into those type of things. And most people don't. Right? There's not many people that can say, I had to take a bullet for Tony 3 times and I took it. I took 3 bullets, right? And I survived, but I took 3 bullets. Or that time that we was out, I took a bullet for you. That's not going to happen very many times. And I find that people that have a disorganized concept of faithfulness and loyalty always define loyalty by these very drastic, not basic life moments. These very big moments, like give you a kidney. I'd give him a kidney. That's how loyal I am to him. I'd give him a kidney. Well, my kidney's okay, right? I don't necessarily need a kidney from you, but I do need the daily commitment in our day-to-day relationship to show me that you're loyal to me. But those people, that's where they draw the line, right? They'll take a bullet for you, but day-to-day loyalty, wait a minute now, right? That's different. That's different. And I struggle with those type of personalities. I would choose someone who shows me their loyalty by trying to understand me, who shows me their loyalty by supporting me when I need support, who shows me their loyalty by choosing me, right? Choosing themselves first, and right after that, choosing me, right? I don't really need you to take a bullet for me. I don't really need you. I'm not going to rob a bank ever. I'm not going to need you to hide a body. So those expressions of loyalty to me exist in a vacuum, right? There's never going to be a time where you're going to be able to display your loyalty to me if we go by those things. And acts of loyalty are very important when you're trying to establish a relationship. And when I think like about those day-to-day behaviors, right? When we think about day-to-day behaviors that show loyalty, I think about couples that argue and disagree, but still show up for each other, right? And I love to see that. I love to see that where, you know, he's like, listen, I don't agree with what you did. I don't agree with how you're handling your family, but I'm right behind you, right? And those are more acts of loyalty. Also, when we talk about loyalty, I think that the discussion about honesty and transparency has a big part in loyalty. You know, in the dating life, in married life, even if you're living with your partner, this often comes up, right? The feeling that your partner's not being honest, or the feeling that your partner's not being transparent. And they don't mean the same thing. We like to use the words interchangeably, but they're not interchangeable. They're very different, right? Honesty is your answer, you telling me the truth when I ask you a question, right? Transparency is a little different. Transparency is more about how you provide and share information that might be relevant in our situation or relationship, right? So transparency, I think, is actually much more important than honesty, because I think that transparency is how you begin to build trust and also how you begin to lose it. I can tell you that, you know, the romantic partner that I most recently got close to, there lacked a lot of transparency. And what started happening in the very beginning of that relationship was that, you know, because I start off giving credit without earning, right? So you get credit for being honest and transparent, even if you don't show it. But as I begin to see that you're not invested in showing that, then I start taking credit away. And that's what started happening, right? There was a lack of transparency. There wasn't an anticipation of what might be relevant to share with me, right? So examples of those things are, right, there's a difference between your partner asking you, hey, who are you hanging out with later, right? And you answering it, and your partner not asking and you volunteering the information. Hey, babe, I'm going out later with Devon, right? That's transparency. You're volunteering. Your partner typically, even if you don't have a partner that is possessive or jealous, your partner typically wants to be involved in your life. Your partner wants to be part of your day-to-day. So if you're going out or doing something that's out of the norm, that's something that your partner typically wants to be involved in. That's where the transparency comes in. I didn't ask what you were doing later, but you did volunteer the information. That's transparency, right? Same thing comes when couples are beginning to talk about intimacy, right? Sexual intimacy, physical intimacy. A lot of people prescribe to, well, you didn't ask. You didn't ask that, right? Yeah, that's okay. That means that it's not lying, right? If you didn't tell me something that I didn't ask, all it means is that you didn't lie. That's it. But there's a layer of being an authentic partner that goes beyond the honesty, that goes with transparency. And transparency is something that I have learned has become very important to me in relationships, right? I like that what it looks like is what it is. I like that to align. And I don't do well when those two things don't align. And I think that those concepts are very misunderstood a lot of times. A lot of times when I'm discussing loyalty with other people, one of the biggest things that comes up, particularly when I speak to males, when I speak to men in different demographics, is the role of social media on loyalty, right? Is approving, requesting, liking pictures of people that you're attracted to, is that being disloyal, right? Social media connections to people that you've been with, is that being disloyal? For me, it is. For me, it is. I think that the concept of using social media to keep people on ice, so to speak, right? I think that that's a very scary thing. I think that, not to mention that if you are in a committed relationship where you are working towards loyalty and you are following women, following men that you are attracted to, and I'm not talking about celebrities, I'm not talking about stars, I'm not talking about models, I'm talking about this regular person that has a page that you can subscribe to, and you know that you're attracted to this person, you're inviting a distraction into your relationship. That's very disloyal, right? Seeking out distractions, seeking out temptations, and putting that over the need of your relationship, that's a very, I don't think that's even unintentional. I think that's a very intentional shot against loyalty. And I'm not really sure why it's such a hard concept to get to align with between men and women. I speak to a lot of men who, and not even a lot. I would say the more immature, the greener man, right? That believes that his social media has no connection to his loyalty, right? These are women I don't know. These are people I don't know. It has nothing to do with my relationship, but it does. It very much does. And that's a day-to-day action that is very important for loyalty, right? Your social media activity. What is it that you're doing on social media, and what does it do for you? And how does it speak to what you're saying you're doing in our relationship? That's actually something that I have learned, for me, has become a non-negotiable and a deal breaker. But I'm finding that a lot of people, men and women, not just women, align with that, right? Your social media is an absolute mirror of who you are and what you welcome and what you enjoy. So when you're in a committed relationship, I'm not talking about people who are dating. I'm not talking about people who are getting to know each other, or people who are single, right? Single people do single things, right? But when you're in a committed relationship and this is the behavior that you're having, I think that speaks a lot to loyalty. So when these acts of loyalty don't happen, when these definitions of loyalty do not align, right? And loyalty is broken by betrayal, right? Can loyalty be rebuilt? That's the question. And I get that question a lot doing my clinical work, right? A lot of people struggle with forgiveness, and a lot of people struggle with overcoming a transgression that they had from a partner. And they always want to know, right? And they want to read the books. Can loyalty be rebuilt? I think that's a very personal question. I think that to answer that, even before you know what the other person did, or even before you know who the other person is, I think that the first question to answer is, what does loyalty mean to me, right? And how important is loyalty in this relationship, in the relationship that you're evaluating to rebuild, right? For me, loyalty is extremely important, and I don't need proof. To be clear, like, I'm not the type of person that I need proof that loyalty has been broken. In my opinion, if I suspect that there's disloyal behaviors, that's enough. Now the loyalty has been broken. So the question is, can it be rebuilt? For me, the answer is yes, with reservations, right? And I say that the answer for me is yes with reservations because I think that it depends on the kind of betrayal that it was. That's where I start, right? And for the types of betrayals that I think can be rebuilt, I think it depends on three things, right? I think it depends on where me and that person are with being honest about what the problem was. You can't rebuild loyalty with someone who's trying to gaslight the betrayal, or someone who's trying to deflect the reasons by which this happened, right? Someone who's trying to say that you're being dramatic or you're overthinking. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. If both people can't acknowledge that there was a breach, loyalty is not going to be rebuilt until that happens. So if we're not on the same page about that, we could just throw the baby out with the bathwater, because I shouldn't have to convince you that loyalty and trust was broken. I shouldn't have to. We can talk it through. That's fine. But convincing you, if we're not on the same page, there's no other step to go. Also, honesty about what triggered the behavior, right? These things, like, it just happens. Things happen. Life happens. People aren't perfect. I'm not trying to hear all that cliche stuff, right? What triggered, what ignited, what made this behavior come out, right? We're going to have to try to figure that out, because to rebuild loyalty means that I feel safe again. And for me to feel safe again, I need to be able to look at stuff that triggered that behavior to protect myself. And I don't think it'll be 100% all the time. You're not always going to know what triggered the behavior, but there's got to be a discussion about it. And I also think, and the third one is the level of accountability of the person involved, right? I've seen a lot of people, I've seen and heard, I've heard it all. I have heard many people rationalize betrayal and loyalty. Some of the things that I've heard, well, if he had been doing his job, then I wouldn't have done that. What? That is the most toxic, gaslighting response to you having gone back on the commitment that you said you made. And it's funny because one of the things that I'm starting to understand at my big age, right, is that so many people are saying that they're committed to each other, but the words have never been spoken, right? Oh, we're together, but there hasn't been a verbal, I commit to you in this way, and then outline the ways that I'm going to do these things. So when a year later, 2 years later, 3 years, 4 years later, this same person says, well, I wouldn't have done that if you would have been on the job, right? If you would have been on the job, I wouldn't have done that. Oh my God. Not only is that hurtful and painful, but it's not true. It's not true. People do not make you do what's not already in you. That's the first thing. You're a disloyal person. You did that because you are disloyal. And there was a lack of honesty in discussing loyalty between you and I. That's why that happened. It's not because I did this or didn't do that. Some of the other things that I've heard is, well, there are levels to loyalty, right? There are levels to it. Not everything is as bad. It's no such thing. If you're disloyal to a commitment, you're disloyal to a commitment. There's no levels. it's disloyal all around. And you know, I hear these things from people that are of a big age, like we say now, right? Big age. I'm not talking about 23-year-olds that are trying to figure things out in dating. I'm talking about men and women that are decades in and are saying things like this. And listen, I think that when people are committed to each other, one of the most loving and beautiful things that people can do for each other is forgive and show grace. So I'm not knocking anybody for believing in their partner and nurturing a relationship with forgiveness and grace. I've done it, right? And I'm not perfect. I'm definitely not perfect. I'm not on here because I'm saying that I have always behaved in loyal ways. But I have gotten to a place in my life where I know what to look for and I appreciate it when I get it. And I do want to act in the most loyal ways for me, right? The trick is finding someone that where your definition and their definition aligns. Once you have that, it's a little easier, but I find that a lot of us get stuck at that stage. So can loyalty be rebuilt? Yes, and it depends on the transgression that broke the loyalty. And I think that when people say that loyalty cannot be rebuilt, I think one of the things that we have to consider and talk about, which is very painful to talk about, is the impact of the betrayal on the person that was betrayed, right? When someone that says they love you has disloyal behaviors towards you, it's damaging and it's confusing, right? Everyone that I speak to that has experienced betrayal gets stuck in the wheel of, what was it about me, right? What was it about me that made them be disloyal? And what was it about me that caused me to miss this, right? For 3 months, I missed this. For 2 years, for 3 years, however long, I missed these disloyal behaviors. So now, can I trust myself, right? And, you know, I can tell you firsthand, right, from personal experience, that acts of disloyalty, it changes your view on love and commitment. And, you know, that's very painful. Think about it. Something that I do, even if I do it without intending to do it, but something that I do can change how someone else believes in love and how someone else commits to someone else in the future. That's big. That's a lot of responsibility. That's a lot of responsibility. And that's why I say all the time when I make new connections, please don't mishandle me the first time. Please don't. Because someone can mishandle me and that connection can end however it ends. But now the impact of what happened there, I carry into other relationships, right? I'm a little more distrustful. I'm a little more guarded, right? Because what happens every time that you break a connection, it takes the next person that much longer to bring your guard down. Most of us, after the end of a connection, our guards start coming up, right? So if you're dating and you're on the 5th, 6th person that it has ended with, it's likely that your guards are very much up. So all those 6 people are now impacting what happens with the 7th. So it's the same thing in a committed relationship. If you're in a committed relationship for a year, for 2 years, for 3 years, and so on, and there is a betrayal there, no matter how much work you do on yourself and on your healing, it is very likely that it's going to pour into the next person somehow. Maybe not in a damaging way. It could be in a cautious way. It could be in a very vigilant way. For example, I know that I'm very vigilant. I'm not as cautious as I should be, but I need to know why everything is how it is and how everything came to be for me to feel safe. And that's come from my past experience. And I know that. I've gotten to a place where I understand that. So if I'm not with a partner that understands that to feel safe, I need to know why you said that. I need to know why you went there. I need to know who these people are. I need to know those things. That's going to be a conflict for us to make it work moving forward. We're not going to be able to move forward more than likely. And I understand that. That's not for everybody. I definitely understand that. So that's all I have to say. I do want to end with a question that I'm curious about when it comes to loyalty and see who answers the question. And my question is, because when we talk about definitions and people defining loyalty in different ways, we often hear people saying staying no matter what, right? So I'd like to know, is loyalty more about staying, or is it more about honesty and transparency? Which has a bigger role in loyalty? Because sometimes I wonder, does the relationship have to remain the same for you to be loyal? Can I be loyal to you even if my role in your life has changed? I think that's a good question. I'd like to know what everybody thinks. So please make sure you subscribe on YouTube to Nat Talks About It. On Instagram, Nat Talks About It. Make sure you hit the like button and make sure you hit the bell so that you can have notifications. See you at the next talk.